Our next speaker, world record-breaking track athlete Brad Barton, was a high-risk youth, then accomplished student, then prevention specialist, and now a nationally recognized keynote speaker, author, and celebrated member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. A CSP, Brad is a leadership and continuous improvement expert who is helping companies create record-setting team cultures. He is the author of Beyond Illusions and the forthcoming book, Back on Track. This father of six is an NCAA All-American and holds Masters Track and Field age group world records. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Brad Barton.
Thanks, Amy. Great to see you. Ever been through a really tough time? Ever been through a really narrow passage? Have you had life kind of rip you up? An experience that tore you to shreds and literally, well, figuratively, left you in pieces. It was miserable. And then months later, years later, you look back on that experience and you say to yourself, I'm so glad. I hope I never have to go through that again. In fact, I would not wish that challenge or that experience on my worst enemy. But you know, I'm grateful for having gone through it. In fact, maybe I wouldn't change a thing. Have you been there before? Really? You wouldn't change a thing? It was tough. It was painful. It was miserable. But ladies and gentlemen, because you went through that, you have grit. The resiliency, the strength that you gain is worth 10 times the pain. Right? That gritty experience gave you grit. Ladies and gentlemen, that right there is magic. I was born at a fairly early age. I was raised in a troubled family. I was, right in the middle of 9 children. I believe my mom and dad had 9 kids for cheap child labor. My dad was a very harsh taskmaster. I got to elementary school, and I had it taught to me by my father that I was lazy and worthless. I felt like I was lazy and, in elementary school, I was the shortest, curliest haired, skinniest little kid. I was the easy one to tease. They called me chicken bones. Middle school, did I get better or worse? Found out I have a learning disability called dyslexia. Some of my friends still call me Brab, right? Because I misspelled my own name the last time when I was 30. This so-called learning disability was just yet another challenge in my life. I stepped off the bus the very first day in high school, 4'9", I weighed 82 pounds, and the kids are laughing again. I went out for the obvious sport, which was, it wasn't football. See, they're still mocking me. No, I went out for the wrestling team. Right? My wrestling coach, an old Greek wrestling coach by the name of George Artemis, he said, Brad, after maybe 2 weeks of working out, he pulled me aside from the other wrestlers and he says, Brad, you will make a champion. I'm looking at him, looking at me, and he says, champions are born and then unmade. You've been unmade, young man, but you and me, we're going to make you again into a champion. I found out years later he stole that line from a Nike sneaker commercial. I didn't know about that. I just knew when he said I could do something, that I could be a champion, I believed him. He says, Brad, I'm going to teach you a lot of great things about wrestling. You need to learn a lot because you're not very good at this, because I wasn't. He says, Brad, you got to learn a lot more important things about life. And I'm going to teach you those more important things. One of the things he taught me, he says, if you want to change your story, you got to change your stories. Now, this is gold, parents. Think about this. If you want to change your story, and folks, I badly did, because I was scared to death. I didn't like where I came from. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like where I was at. I was scared about where I was headed. I wanted desperately to change my story. He says, Brad, the words that you speak are powerful. If you want to change your story, Brad Barton, you got to change your stories. And I did, and it did. Usually in a thunderous applause when I do that, right? Because I started using different words, I started working harder in the wrestling mat, and I'm winning matches legit. I'm working harder in running, and I'm setting records and winning races. I'm working harder in the classroom, and I'm doing well. Actually, better than just eligible, barely. And then he told me I could go to college. He says, Brad, you can go to college someday. My dad laughed in my face. I went to school the next day. Give it up, coach. My dad said I could never do that. He says, Brad, if you want college bad enough, you got college in the... He said, work harder than anybody else in the state of Idaho, Brad Barton. You can win a state championship. And so I took him at his word, with no guarantee of success, just like he said that I would. I won that state championship, just like he said that I could. They gave me a scholarship to go to Weber State University down in a place called Ogden, Utah. I became a Big Sky Conference champion there. I ran a 4-minute mile, NCAA All-American. Guys, I managed to squeeze a 4-year college degree into 5 years. But I graduated cum laude from Weber State University because I found out IR smart. At least smart enough to do really well because I was willing to outwork the folks in the the classroom next to me. My college coach, after a dismal freshman year, I was ready to give up on myself, academically and athletically. And then I was given a gift. I was given a chance to go serve a 2-year religious commitment that was so hard it tested my mettle again. And I came back from that 2-year experience rededicated with much more resilience. And I came back and proved to my coach that I deserved to be on that team on scholarship. After just a few months, he pulled me in the office and says, Brad, no college athlete at Weber State University track program has ever made the Olympic team. I think you can do this. No promises, but if you give me your heart, if you give me your soul, if you're willing to be resilient, I can put you in a position to make the team. And so I did what he asked, and I believed in him. I trusted in my coaching. And I got to the Olympic trials, one of the few Americans with a legitimate chance of making this team in the 3,000-meter steeplechase. And in the Olympic trials, in the semifinal round, the last lap, I slipped. I fell into the water and took 4 guys' Olympic dreams behind me away as well as we dug our way out of that water in a jumble of sweat and blood, and we sprinted to the finish. Folks, I didn't even make the final. So, new vision. How about romance? I married a woman that was an Olympic trial qualifier in the marathon. Middle distance, long distance, we figured we'd get together and have some hybrids. And we did, right? And we did. And that's our crew. It's a dated picture. The older kids have credentials. They're faster than blazes. The younger ones are amazing as well. Folks, we're runners. You get that. And all the time, I'm raising my family with my wife, and we're doing well and trying to teach our kids resiliency. I'm on the stage in front of people telling them, you can do more. You can get better. You can get back on that steep learning curve because that's a beautiful, awful, terrible, amazing, wonderful place to be. Go do something hard again. Go do something marvelous. Don't just be a human being. Be a human green growing human becoming. And I guess I drank my own Kool-Aid. I found myself at 44 years old back on the track after 19 years, wondering if I could break a 5-minute mile. Guys, at 44 years old, I ran a 4:43 mile. Then I ripped my quad terribly. It took months to heal. The next year, working with the Ogden High School track team, my wife's the coach, I ran a 4:32 mile. Then I ripped my quad. Took months to heal. I called my old college coach, retired Olympic coach, Chick Hislop, and I said, Coach, what are we going to do? He says, you ran 4:32 at 46? What's the world record in your age group? I don't know. We looked it up. It's 420.19. Now, some of you, that's just a number, okay, folks? 420, how many of you know that's kind of fast for a 46-year-old, right? He said, what are we going to do, Coach? He says, here's what I think we ought to do, Brad. I think we both ought to come out of retirement. I think we ought to go do something that's never been done before. and the vision was renewed. We started working together again, and I ran a 4:26 mile. Remember, the world record's 4:20.19, 4:20. I ran a 4:26 mile, I ran a 4:23 mile, and then I broke my foot. Yeah, I came out of the doctor's office after the bone scan, and I turned to Coach. What do you think? He said, I think we might have figured out why that's a 30-year-old world record we're going for. What do you mean, Coach? He says, maybe we figured out that you can't train. A guy as old as you can't train any harder than that, to run that any faster than that. And I'm like, oh. And then he says, but maybe not. Maybe we just haven't figured it out yet. Maybe we just haven't dialed in the resiliency that you need to have as an old man to run even faster. So we took all the things that we learned, that he learned over a lifetime, that we learned together in my earlier life, and we put it all up for examination, and we took out the things that wouldn't work anymore, we added some things that would, and we redefined what it was like to train at a world-class level again. And one thing we decided to do is to race against college kids, because there's nobody fast enough to run against my age. So after four failures, one at ISU, one at Boise State, and one at Boston, I went to Cornell University for seeming my last chance. I remember how nervous I was walking across that Cornell campus in Ithaca. I could see my breath. It was late February. I'm going to go do something that's never been done. I got to the place on campus where the 200-meter track is housed. I look up, and the building it's in is called Barton Hall. My name's Brad Barton. I'm standing there with a selfie right here thinking, I own this place, right? I stepped onto the track, and I was ready. I was inspired. I'm going to go do this thing. Ivy League pennants from the ceiling. Folks, I spent the first lap of this 8-lap, 200-meter track race in lane 3. 18 other guys in the race. You cannot break a world record in lane 3. I was desperate to find my way inside. I finally, after the first lap, I looked in the inside lane. I saw a little gap to my left, and I dove for it. Made a decision, I dove for it. There wasn't enough room. I clipped the runner behind me. He clipped me. I fell hard to the inside rail. It was a violent experience, especially for a 47-year-old. End over end, I'm back on my feet, and I'm running. I'm back on track, yes? And I'm back to pace, and I'm reeling. I'm 15 meters behind the stragglers, and I'm thinking, no, what do I do? And then I thought, Brad, get your head in this. You're the master runner here. You're the smartest guy in this race. You can still do this. Halfway through, you got to catch these guys. And so I took it a little bit at a time. At the halfway mark, I'm catching the stragglers. With 2 laps to go, I'm challenging for the lead. I'm back on pace. And then with 300 meters to go, I'm thinking, I don't need my head back in this. I need my heart in it. And then with 200 meters to go, everything just kind of fades to gray. When I came to, the Dartmouth coach and the Brown coach holding me up on my feet, and one of them just turned to me and said, you didn't get it, Brad. After I'd recovered a bit, I went to the stairwell at Barton Hall. I called my old coach. I said, Coach, I didn't get it done. I fell. I was emotional. I was hurting badly. My shoulder's a bit out of socket. My legs are still burning from the effort. I'm so discouraged. I said, I can't do this, Coach. It's too hard. And Coach says, remember what we're doing here, Brad. And that called me back. Yeah, we're doing things that have never been done. He says, besides that, if it was easy, it had already been done before. And then he says, get back to Ogden. We'll get your shoulder looked at. We'll adjust a workout. We'll get you to that last chance meet in Columbia, and we'll get it done there. And this is what happened next.
Is what his goal is.
I'm on
today.
pace. I'm dead last, but I'm on pace.
We'll have 4 fast sections here, the men's mile, the Columbia Last Chance meet. I'm Justin Britton, joined by Ben Enowitz to my right, and Murnane Cousins, 61.5 through 400 meters. 63 for Brad Barton,
That's
going
me
for
in black,
420.19.
dead last.
That's the number.
But I'm running my race.
Cousins, Saunders, Weeks, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3:11 with 2 to go. Cousins is rolling, pulling away from the field. Brad Barton, though, making a move now in third. Barton, the Masters runner. He's looking good. Tim Cousins, 1 to go, 342. T. Cousins rolling. Brad Barton is also rolling, now in second. Tim Cousins, 4:13.68 unofficially. Saunders, Barton, unofficially new American Masters record for age group 45 to 49 here. 4:15.67 for Brad Barton, new Masters American record age group 45-49. Getting the fist pump.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is resiliency? But the ability to adapt and change and bounce back in the face of adversity. Now, I understand I just took a chunk of my time to tell you my story, but understand this. If you've ever had a child, if you yourself has ever been through a bad time and had some narrow passage, if you've ever had voices that tell you can't do this, and then voices that tell you, yes, you can, then it's the same story, yes? You kids have the same. I just told our story, didn't I? With the details different. Here's what resiliency is. I've got 3 things I want to, and my story illustrates this, three principles that us as parents can do an even better job with. Number 1, allow our kids to experience the pain in life. Allow them to experience the pain in life. When I was a teenager, there was a cult movie called The Princess Bride. Anyone ever seen the flick? Right? Remember the Man in Black? Dread Pirate Roberts? He says, life is pain, Highness. Anyone telling you different, try to sell you something? I thought, that's truth right there, because that's really life, isn't it? Here's the thing. Young people are shielded by us parents. It's intuitive that we want to shield our kids from the pain, yes? Guys, now, don't get me wrong. Yes, as parents, it's our job to shield our kids from danger. Let's keep them as far from evil as we can. But doggone it, let's not let them, let's allow them to experience the inevitable failures in life. We don't need to give every one of them a trophy just for participation. It's good to say, yes, you won, and you lost. Better luck next time. Work even harder. Folks, let's let them experience the pain of their own poor choices. Let them experience that and let them know that that's real life. See, the problem, folks, is not having problems. The problem is when we have problems and think that having problems is a problem. Did you get that? If we let kids know that life is pain, it's awful, it's terrible, it's horrifying at times. It's also amazing, and it's wonderful, and it's beautiful, and it's incredible beyond words. That when kids go through that narrow passage, they're not thinking, oh no. They're just thinking, oh yes, that's what Mama said was going to happen. Mama told me there'd be days like these, right? It's great advice, folks. It's great advice from a beetle. If we let our kids know that it's going to be tough and it's also going to be amazing, then when they experience the tough, they experience the tough. And they say, that is what Dad said life was going to be like. And I like Kipling in his poem, If. When we can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Ladies and gentlemen, that's real life. That's real life. Let's let them experience the pain. Number 2, let's give them a perspective in life. My little brother was 16 years old when he fell from a tree, became hopelessly paralyzed. Guys, this is tough for his family. It was really, really tough for Will. Many times he begged my mother to put a pillow over his face. It was horrifying. And then my little brother had an incredible experience. It was nothing less than a miracle. When he came to consciousness, he had been given a gift, a perspective. He was given a perspective of what he was doing there in that chair. And he said after that, he says, I choose this as my life stretch. I'm going to make the best of it. And my little brother did. He worked harder than any 17-year-old had oughta. But when he almost 18 months to the day, he lurched across the stage and graduated with his high school class. He's still lurching. He's a quadriplegic, folks. He got a college degree. Then he started dating. It took a few years to find a woman with a sense of humor to date. You got to have a sense of humor to date a quadriplegic. But Amber's got a great sense of humor. And it was 9 months, 29 days after they wed that Amber gave birth to Will's son. And it was 13 months later, son number 2. 15 months later, son number 3. 11 months later, son number 4. And 15 months after that, son number 5. And the family rumor has it that Amber, well, she's starting to lose her sense of humor. Folks, let's give kids perspective. Let's let our children know what life is really about. It's a bit like a battery, isn't it? There's a positive charge and a negative charge. And it takes both sides to power up our lives. Let's give them that perspective so that when we're going through a narrow passage, some kids quit right there and turn to alcohol and tobacco and other drugs. Some kids quit right there and make the ultimate bad decision. And it's an epidemic, isn't it? Let's let them know that this too shall pass. My mother changing sprinkler pipes, her going through her own personal hell, and me experiencing with her, with tears in her eyes, she says, Brad, the best and the finest steel is forged in the hottest furnace with the most cruel smith. And he pounds it out, and he pounds it, and he pounds that steel, and then folds it over and pounds it some more. And the more adversity that we go through, Brad, the tougher we're going to be. And she was right. My mom was right. Just like you and I can be right. Here's something we had not to dispense as folksy wisdom, parents. You better enjoy your high school years because they're the best years of your life. Are you kidding me? No. We're telling them our story if we tell them that. Some kids are barely making it through high school, and they don't have any hope and belief. And then we say it doesn't get any better than this, right? Folks, those of you that know, they know that, college is like 4 times more fun than high school, yes? Getting married to a beautiful spouse and having a half a dozen kids, that's even way more fun, yes? Guys, we got to be teaching our kids that life only gets better. It only gets better. Let's let our kids experience failures. And let's give them perspective that the failures only last for a while. Guys, that let them see failure as the illusion that it is. And that failure only exists for those who quit. And I don't quit. And you don't quit. Our kids don't quit. Let's be preaching that folksy wisdom, because that's true doctrine. Ladies and gentlemen, the third thing to toss at you is this notion of vision. We as clergy or scout leaders or Girl Brownie leaders or debate coaches or parents or families, mom, we got to help your kids see a vision for their life like my tremendous coaches have for me. Coach told me when I was a lot younger, Brad, I think we can go do something that's never been done. It took 23 years to make that come to fruition, but we did it. You've been around the track a few times, haven't you? Have you ever found yourself in the wrong lane? Have your kids ever made a bad decision, got tripped up on the thing, tangled in a real mess, fall hard to the inside rail? Parents, encourage them to get back up on their feet, get back to track, get their head back in their race, get their heart back in, and they can go do something that they've never done before. Thanks.